Okay, welcome to today's daily pick a card tarot reading for August 22nd today. So you can pick a card that's speaking to you, these three. I'll give my interpretation. If you have an interpretation of your own, please put it in the comments below. Okay, we'll start with this card. We have guilt, the Eight of Clouds, which is the Eight of Swords, and right side up. So today is Sunday, and definitely, so see what speaks to you in the imagery, but we have a woman who's having these sort of ethereal hands scratching at her there. It looks pretty not so good, but there's some really nice flowers up above. So in this deck, they talk about guilt as a recurring, almost sort of meditation on a mistake that you made. And so the importance is realizing for yourself when you're in the difference between making a mistake and finding a solution to that mistake and acting on it versus living in a feeling of that you did something wrong or that you need someone to forgive you. So it's important, if you're having feelings of guilt, to understand the mistake you made and to correct from that, because otherwise this can sort of be a sort of state that you get stuck in, feeling guilty about something rather than identifying what the problem was and taking action to move out of that. So if you are feeling guilty today, maybe just take a moment to see what mistake it was that's making you feel guilty so that you can course correct and move on from that instead of keeping yourself in this sort of guilt cycle. Okay, now we'll do our middle card. If you chose this one, we have fighting, which is the Knight of Clouds reversed, which is the Knight of Swords reversed. So you can pause the video, see what speaks to you in the imagery. We had this kind of recently as well. So for me, what I felt last time and what I still feel with this card is that the fighting, getting talked about this because it's reversed, I think it's fighting that is going on internally rather than external sort of fighting that's going on. So it may be that you're, and related to thinking as well, so you may have ways of thinking that you know aren't benefiting yourself, sort of nasty thoughts about yourself, but you can't help but stop them. And the thing that is tricky is that sometimes you can identify thoughts that you're having that aren't helpful for yourself, and then you start to fight having those thoughts, but you're still fighting your own thoughts. If anything, it almost can get kind of worse. So for this one, for me, what helps is journaling or even just talking through to yourself, sort of narrating what's going on, sort of acknowledging, wow, I feel I'm having these negative thoughts towards myself, and I'm having a feeling of not wanting to experience these negative thoughts anymore. And for me, usually doing that sort of self-narration is really helpful in sort of brings me a feeling of acknowledgement, but also sort of a separation from those feelings that can help me to get to a place of peace in that. Meditation can also help, getting a little bit of distance from that. This is pretty dangerous. In the deck, they say these buttons are self-destruct buttons. So those internal thoughts can be really scary and can really be damaging. So sometimes, just like if there's a dangerous person in your life, it's important to get physical space from them. It's okay to need physical space from your thoughts, but it's important to not sort of get into using substance or things like that to sort of like run away from them, because then you're sort of relying on an external thing. So giving meditation a try, giving if you need like real help, going to a professional, sort of acknowledging that, or going to someone else who you feel like you can talk about this to, is really important. And our last card here, we have playfulness, which is the Page of Wands, usually. We have lots of sparkles, clown person, dancing, playing. Playfulness is definitely a challenge for me. I feel like sort of how I grew up, there's a lot of like seriousness, and like playfulness was kind of seen as like a vulnerability in a way, and a sort of vulnerability of like, if you're playful, something bad will happen, and so it was like dangerous to be playful in a way. And I think so I have to acknowledge that, because I definitely have a tendency to be pretty serious. So definitely take my interpretation of this with a grain of salt, because it sort of is through my like valuing of stoicism stuff, I guess. But my feeling with this card, at least the message that I'm getting, is that it's important to acknowledge today playfulness and the importance of playfulness, and taking time to do something that I feel fits into, that I feel like is okay to do playfully. And so like within my structure of seriousness in my life, acknowledging or finding something that I can be playful at today, and allowing that playfulness to expand outwards. So that's the sort of message that I'm getting from this card for today, is to identify, even if it's just for a few minutes, or find something that I can do, hands getting shaky, something that I can do to be a little bit playful today. Okay, we're gonna look now at all of the cards together. So we had guilt. If you wanna pause to see what speaks to you in that imagery, which is the Eight of Swords in the tarot. We had the Knight of Swords, fighting, reversed. And we had playfulness, right side up, Page of Wands. Okay. So the message is feeling pretty clear to me from all of this, is that, there's so much going on in the world today that I think guilt is something that is just like, you have to clean dishes. is something that is going to come up, especially with how information travels around our world. And so instead of ignoring those dishes and letting them pile up, or thinking about all the dirty dishes that may come, I think it's important to clean those dishes, acknowledge that. So acknowledge if you're feeling guilt today, acknowledge the guilt that you're feeling and do something concrete to assuage or to get rid of that guilt. Maybe not get rid of it, but to resolve that guilt today instead of dwelling on it. And you don't even have to solve the thing that is making you feel guilty, but just taking some step, even if it's small, to resolve that guilt. You don't have to fix it. And so similar things with fighting today. You might be feeling internal sort of fighting with your own thoughts, or maybe you're even sort of, after acknowledging your guilt, you might not want to feel that guilt. So then you're fighting with something that you're feeling or thinking inside. And so it may be important to take space from that. And if you don't know how to solve it, saying, just as if there was someone that was being aggressive to you on the street, you may not know how to solve that situation in the moment. So the best thing for you to do, maybe just take some space from that. And our last card, playfulness, is kind of the message in all that, is that the way to resolve this guilt and fighting in our minds, which you can see, many of the things that are problems in the world today are kind of a result of lots of feelings of guilt and lots of fighting with our own minds. And so a way to resolve that, it feels like today, is finding something that, even amongst all of the guilt and fighting in your mind, can feel playful for today. So for me, I definitely get a lot of guilty thoughts and internal fighting in my mind. So for me, it's hard to find things that I can be playful at doing, because I have sort of an internal dialogue that tells me, oh, if I'm being playful, I'm not helping to solve problems in the world. But playfulness leads to creative thinking, which leads to problem solving, that is healing and is can be more intuitive than any sort of problem solving that would come from already being in a guilty or fighting state of mind. So that feels like a pretty clear message from all these for me for today. But if you have any of your own interpretations, please share them below, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you. And a last note for today, I do energy work that's based in Reiki. So I don't know if you've heard of that before or not, but if you're interested in doing any energy work with me, I'm working on setting up a website, but until then you can message me via the Instagram link that will be connected below, and I do that either via donations, or if you really need it, I can always work something out for people, and that's something that I really enjoy doing. That gets me into sort of feels playful for me. So yeah, that's it for today, and we'll catch you around. Bye.